Hey there, Mr. Loma again. I thought I would do a full example now of an implicit question. This is very similar to one you might see on a quiz or a test. So this question asks you to find the slope of the normal to this function, or is it a function? We don't know, when y equals 1. I encourage you to punch this into Desmos because I don't actually know what this looks like. So it could be quite neat. But we're going to find the slope of the normal to this curve when y equals 1. So I'm going to do this in a certain order. You can do it in whatever order you want, but when I only know that the y value is 1, I like to find the corresponding x. So when y is 1, you get 4x minus x squared times 1 cubed, which is just 1, equals 1 plus 2. And so then you've got 4x minus x cubed equals 3. Sorry, not x cubed. X squared. So 0 equals, bring everything to one side here, minus 4x plus 3. So you get x minus 1 and x minus 3. So that means that x equals 1 or x equals 3. In other words, there's 2 points. There's a point 1, 1, and there's also a point 3, 1. So there's actually 2 tangents on the curve when y equals 1. Think about whether or not that means this is a function. Think about the picture if you want. Okay, next step is do the derivative. Differentiate with respect to x, both sides. And here's really quite powerful stuff. The derivative of 4x is just 4. The derivative of 2 is just 2. The derivative of y is dy dx. That's what the derivative means. Assuming x is your derivative, it's just dy dx. Whoopsie, I almost made the mistake that everyone makes. The derivative of 2 is 0 because it's a constant. Good thing I caught that. And then here, this is something I often do on these quizzes. What we have here is a product of two things, and you have to consider them to be a product of two functions. So you have to do the product rule here. And so I've underlined what I'm considering to be the first, and then the y cubed is I'm considering to be the second. So you got to be careful here. So the way the product works, the product rule works again, it's the derivative of the first times the second plus the first times the derivative of the second. But watch out for this negative sign. So I'm going to incorporate the negative sign into my first function and just watch out. So the derivative of negative x squared is negative 2x times the second left alone, which is y cubed, plus the first. So watch out here, this is actually negative x squared because I'm adding the first, but the negative sign is part of it, times the derivative of the second. The derivative of y cubed is 3y squared, but again, we pretended that the y was an x, so we have to correct it by putting dy dx. I gotta give myself a bit more room here. So yes, anytime you differentiate something with y's, you have to correct it by putting in a dy dx. And you can see that there's more than one dy dx here. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring everything to one side that's similar. So this is 3x squared y squared, the negative is now gone, dy dx, plus another dy dx. And then we're going to factor dy dx out of these two terms. And some of you may not believe me on the first try, but you will start to get quite fast at this and you'll be very proficient at rearranging these quickly. And so dy dx is 4 minus 2xy cubed over 3x squared y squared plus 1. This is your rate of change everywhere. That's otherwise known as your IROC, your slope of the tangent, etc. So now all we do is we sub in our points. At 1, 1, dy dx equals 4 minus 2 times 1 times 1, which is 2, and 3 times 1 times 1, which is 3. And so you get 2 over 4, which is a half. And at 3, 1, might have to be a bit more calculating here, you get 4 minus 2 times 3 times 1 cubed, which is 1. 3 times 3 squared, watch out for that squared, times 1 squared plus 1. So it looks like you get on the top -2, and on the bottom you get 27 plus 1, which looks to be about 28 if I've done it right, which is -1/14. And just don't make the mistake of forgetting the last step. The question asked you for the slope of the normal. So this is m tan. So for the normal, of course, sometimes I'll ask you for the normal, the tangent, sometimes I ask you for the equation, sometimes just the slope. Make sure you've read the question. So for this one, the slope of the normal would be -2, because of course it's the negative reciprocal. And this one, the slope will be +14. And you can write +14/1 if you want, and -2/1 if you want. Maybe I will, because that might remind you where this stuff came from. So it's the negative reciprocal. Negative recip. And those are the slopes of the two normals. And I'm just going to go up and make sure I've answered the question here. Yep, find a normal. And there it is all on one screen. Hopefully that helps, and I hope you have a great day. Talk to you later.